First, I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Reena Patel. I'm the partner and COO of IV.AI. We're an NLP platform that since 2016 has helped businesses make sense of large swaths of text data to unlock deeper understanding and application of AI. We do this for companies like Uber and Netflix, so we work with some of the world's biggest companies. But we're still really tied to enforcing structures of ethical AI practices with these companies. So we're partners with the UN Sustain Chain. We have an AI 100 award from UNESCO, and we're advisors of the World Ethical Data Forum. I'm sorry, I'm not speaking very articulately. So super excited about this forum. We're living in an amazing time where AI has never had more attention and scrutiny. And while AI holds in its hands great opportunities for the world, it can also reinforce echo chambers of bias. Today, we will explore a specific subset of AI applications: marketing, understanding audiences, managing data, and deriving actionable insights. We'll also dive into the role of inclusion in reaching audiences you want to target, while also balancing the creepiness factor that some of these campaigns may leave you feeling. And we've all experienced that creepiness factor when we know that we're being followed and our data is being collected. So with that said, let's meet our panelists. We have Nick Venezia, founder and CEO of centillion.ai, who is a data-driven marketing leader with over 14 years of experience in the online advertising industry. We have James Myrick, general manager of BENlabs. James is passionate about the future of AI innovation, particularly in the realm of video intelligence and its impact on human behavior. Dan Benyamin, founder and CEO of Aeon. For over 20 years, Dan has developed award-winning technologies used worldwide in a variety of industries. And we have Sheila Marmon, founder and CEO of Myrick Digital. Sheila has a passion for launching new businesses in the digital media and ad tech industry and has created innovative platforms for over 20 years. So I'm going to ask each of you to just tell us a little bit more about yourselves, your businesses, and the work that you do before we jump into some questions. So starting with Nick.
Cool. So name's Nick, big Dodger fan, grew up here locally in LA as well. Background is in ad tech, and we focus actually on looking at data from a lens of identifying what's real. What can you actually measure? The throughput. Can you control? Can you track it? And if it has consent, data is only as good as the consent that it has or the measurability for an outcome at the end of the day. So we work with over 67 mobile network operators, representing roughly over 2.7 billion people amongst all of them, helping bridge and be the back end for consent and helping do data protection for individuals.
Great.
Hello, mic check. Mic check, there we go. Hi, my name is Sheila Marmon. I'm the founder and CEO of Myrick Digital. We help the world's most recognized brands connect with diverse audiences on digital media and advertising platforms. And those include people of color, Black, Asian, Latin, LGBTQ, and diverse audiences. And we really look at operating at the intersection of ad tech and advanced multicultural marketing and incorporating digital innovation in everything that we do. So we've been in the creator economy for over a decade. We're launching podcasts, and we're looking at how we now incorporate AI into our work streams and to help us with targeting, which we'll talk a little bit more about today. Some of our clients include General Motors, AT&T, Amazon, Procter & Gamble, Disney, and so we're having a lot of fun.
Awesome. My name is James Myrick. I'm the general manager at BENlabs. I've been there for coming up on a decade, so it's been a fun time. We specialize really in tackling the marketing ecosystem from a content and content intelligence standpoint. And what I mean by that is we really leverage artificial intelligence to contextualize audiences, to understand the worlds that they choose to live in. We contextualize the content that they consume, and by having both of those elements in place, we can actually predict outcomes of how content changes and shapes human behavior. both from a viewership and engagement standpoint, but also from a branding, marketing, and sales standpoint. And so we create predictability in unpredictable spaces.
Hi, my name is Dan. I have been building companies since 1998. I've seen a lot of technology cycles, so hopefully I have a bit of a prediction as to where things go. I started out in chip design, in hardware chip design, and then consumer electronics, and then social media. Had a paid social company in 2010 when paid social was very new. Grew to be the #1 platform in the world and got acquired by Condé Nast. At Condé Nast, I was the VP of data products, where I would essentially productize and sell everyone's data. I'm making it sound worse than it really was. But we used a lot of AI and we used a lot of data. And then a year ago, I left that to start what would be my 4th company, which is AI video for publishers. And that's Aeon.
Thank you. So let's jump right in and kind of start with foundational questions. So, we know there's lots of different applications for AI tools today, but how does it really better help us understand the customer audiences we want to reach? And also understanding what are some of the concerns that you're trying to address while you're trying to reach those audiences. Sheila, I'm going to start with you because you've talked a little bit about inclusion and diverse audiences. So I'd love to hear more about how you're navigating that.
Absolutely. So AI knows a lot of things, but I know a lot of things better than AI. So the thing is really finding the magic in the balance. When we think about what AI can help us do, going back to some of the things that some of the panelists have said, is what is objective, what is measurable, and what can we really know to be true in a real sense. Where AI can start to be challenged is when we have to put our subjective lens on things. And that's where, you think about when we're tagging data, we're all human beings who walk in our own shoes. And so coming to that exercise with our own bias, our own lens, we have to be really mindful about how that can then be injected into the models. So when you think about, utilizing AI, some very simple things, you might say, okay, show me a picture of a good doctor, and think about the images that pop up. Show me the images of a criminal, and think about the images that might pop up. Show me the images of a beautiful woman. Show me the images of a successful business person. And I would encourage you all to, on your own time, just, kind of peruse this, and you'll start to see some of the ingrained ways that we look at the world are starting to become part of these models. And as we rely more and more on those models, the models become the data, and they become the foundation for how decisions are made at scale. So it's really important to think about who is involved in that process, how we're really opening the aperture to make sure that there are diverse voices at the table, and that we're inclusive in considering how we're forming these data sets that are going to build the foundation for AI technologies.
I can add to that too. I know one of the things that we use AI for a lot actually is shooting down bad ideas quicker. It'll tell you a million reasons why something is wrong and it won't work, which therefore helps you accelerate to, in essence, the right solution. Ask ChatGPT to list 18 to 27 different reasons why you're wrong on, say, a certain campaign, and it'll happily give you 27. And if for some reason it stopped out around 12 or never even made it to that minimum, then hey, you might actually have something. So it accelerates that growth and for challenging instead the human creativity element.
Yeah, when I think about leveraging artificial intelligence, specifically in the space of marketing and advertising, I think it's important to take a step back for a second and think about, really, at the end of the day, marketing is all about making a connection with your consumer, making a connection with an audience member. And up to this point, and to your point, we've leveraged our biases, our assumptions to create campaigns, to run entire marketing programs based on what our worldview specifically says is going to work. Now, we can stress test that with AI. We can challenge those biases by looking at some more data. But when we pull in and we have an appropriate data strategy, we can better step away from our worldview, our existence, and better understand and contextualize the world of our specific audience segments. The reality is that you can have two people living on the same street who probably, they make the same amount of money, their kids go to the same school, yet they couldn't be more different in the things that they like, the things that they watch, the things that they choose. And until we can understand that and actually come to grips with that reality, you'll never actually relevantly enter that person's world. What artificial intelligence allows us to be able to do is it allows us to contextualize our audiences through the types of behaviors and actions that they take, which means that we can now create content that is better fit for their world in a way that is going to be impactful for them. And so when it comes to audience targeting, I think that AI is game-changing, because too long the marketing world has been okay with subpar capabilities when it comes to targeting and understanding who your audiences are. With the power and the capability to process as much data as is available to us, we now have this possibility to now customize and make more relevant our brand for those specific audiences, those worlds, as those consumers experience them. And that's the foundation of how we should be thinking about marketing, which is a foundational shift from where we've been for the past 100 years.
Yeah, I think actually one of the more transformational aspects about what's happening now is that, first of all, AI has been in marketing about as long as it's left the laboratory. I mean, it's we've been doing it for a long time. So in a certain sense, none of it's new, but what's new is how democratized it is now. It used to be that the biggest companies would have the most data, or the biggest companies with the most money would have the data scientists or the algorithms or whatever it happens to be, and those were closely held secrets. And it really meant that the bulk of the really smart marketing was done by a very, very, very small subset of the marketing industry and agencies at large. That's been totally flattened, right? So you can have very, very powerful marketing insights coming from a very small boutique shop. I don't know what those effects are going to be, but that's a big deal. That's a really big deal. I mean, you're now exploding 1,000 to 1, million to 1, the capabilities of what people have been able to do.
I think also what's important too is it seems like everyone has the same unified thing where it's a talking into the belief system of that individual, that hyper-personalization of the one-to-one to help move them to change or make the message resonate. And essentially until we have that right type of, say, data structure that correlates to that individual, where you've got their college alma mater colors as the frame of the billboard, just those subtle little cues and hits for same team alignment. It's those different types of personalization that is a data structure issue, more so, not an AI issue. So until we factor in things like data decay, which is really important, is deprecating data and removing bad data quickly, because that's how you get these flawed models and things that become not relevant.
Yeah. I want to build on that for 1 second, because I agree when it comes to hyper-personalization on an individual level, 100%. But I also believe that there are ways in which you can look at the world through in terms of systems. Stable systems have stable outputs. And if you think about a neighborhood in Northern California, I'm from Northern California, that neighborhood is going to have a school, it's going to have a fire department, it's going to have normal neighborhood things. That neighborhood might have almost a sister neighborhood somewhere in Texas. And so you're going to have people who live and experience their entire lives in these separate neighborhoods, and yet they live in completely different places with their alma mater is different and things like that. So when you start thinking about hyper-personalization, you can actually do it on a system level to where you don't necessarily need the individualized data, but you can actually look at the worlds that they've created and just simply enter into the worlds more relevantly to them. And so there's ways to do it in data safe and privacy safe ways that I think can be balanced with the hyper-personalization as well.
Block by block. Gotta go that way, block by block, because each block is different lingo, different terms, different trends, different beliefs, different slang.
I would love to hear you guys talk a little bit about what some of those questions are, or how you actually make that happen, because what, to me, when I think about data being more relevant, being more efficacious, you really have to know what are the right questions. What makes that household in California different from that household in Texas? And it's, not the size of the local elementary school. It's not the brand of the nearest department store. So what are those things that get at the heart of what is culture? And people talk a lot about culture, but I think it's hard to put a pinpoint on in terms of language, values, priorities, and working with diverse consumers that are often at the forefront of creating culture. We're always thinking about how things are changing so rapidly and trying to get ahead of what's next. What is the new lingo? What is the new Jordan? What is the new song? What is the new, and how do we incorporate that into the work that we're doing to be relevant? But when you go back to systems, what you're saying, systematizing that is the hard part. So in ad tech, we're getting rid of cookies. We're all these third-party data providers that most of them were terrible anyway. AI unlocks this whole nother level of a more refined data set to get to the things that matter, but we have to get more adept at asking the right questions.
I love that. One of the things that I would add to that is, content in the world of AI is data. Now, it's always been data for good, intelligent marketers. You see what's trending, you see who's the coolest person, but content, like what people choose to watch, makes up the world that they live in, and that is data that you can now process. So going back to data strategy, if you know and are able to process that to better understand and contextualize your consumer, that world that what's of interest to them, the shows that they're watching, the music that they're listening to, helps define who they are from a slang, from what's important, from the types of brands that they want. And so if we start looking at the world not just in the structured data, but also in the unstructured data, it provides a much richer viewpoint when it comes to understanding audiences.
Yeah, I think actually what you're saying is really relevant too, is by looking at things like the transcript of a show, looking at the context. If you can determine that the person has consumed that content, for example, that means they were just exposed to, say, that issue, that maybe product need, which actually pre-jumps where that level of intent occurs, which is i.e. Google search. You literally, you start to index things like the consumption of content, you can start to forecast and jump ahead before they hit Google to go look for that product for brand targeting, where it adds a level of relevancy to those individuals, where it's able to naturally just show up by happenstance. And an example of that and the work that we're doing is actually with Podcast One, where we actually look at the transcript of the show that the podcast listener is listening to. We map the listener of the show to the transcript. We then do things like index if there's any, say, SKU level products, like did they mention sour Skittles on the show? We then analyze that, and we can look through our data sets through the rewards layer and can connect if whether or not that person has ever bought, say, sour Skittles in the last 6 months. By then seeing that purchase show up of that listener to that purchase from in-store where they use the rewards data, the rewards card, and connecting that, you're now able to do things like assign actual organic attribution to help empower whole industries that used to be siloed, like podcasting, where now it shows the true value of, hey, these guys are just talking about sour Skittles on the show. Next thing you know, these things are selling like hotcakes. And so that's what's cool also, is measurable.
So it's really interesting that we're talking about the foundation of all of this is data, right? And there's large amounts of data. There's also the impact of the global data, management of like global data sources. And I'm thinking about Netflix as an example, right? Netflix has used AI to really help people understand what, put content in front of them that they have a match to their user preferences. But I'm thinking about India and the content streaming wars and trying to understand, the regional differences between, consumers in India, trying to take all of that data, trying to segment it the right way. how do we handle the vast amounts of information? How do we prioritize that information to match to the consumers we're really trying to reach? And what are the implications for data privacy, especially when you're looking in a global framework that has different regulations, rules, diversity of thinking and thought, and different makeup, if you will. So I'd love to kind of dive into data as sort of, how do you deal with it all? How do you figure out what to prioritize? So yeah, Nick.
I'm happy to go for that consent one too.
Yeah.
I mean, so what's actually fascinating right now, and it's actually a massive opportunity for everyone in this room, is the fact that all of these various mobile network operators, these carriers, so like in just the US, you've got, of course, like your T-Mobile, your Verizon, your AT&T, but internationally, you've got your Deutsche Telekom, your Vodafone, you've got your China Mobile, you name it, they're in there. And what it is all of these different telecom providers have gotten fed up with the fact that actually companies like Netflix, for example, run over the top, or Meta and Google. They're using their infrastructure and literally hijacking the value that we as humans create. And so what they're having to do now is they're continuously having to offset the capital expense of building out new infrastructure for 5G, and they're looking for new ways to actually generate new forms of revenue. What they decided to do was actually come together, unlike other industries, where all of these different mobile network operators, within one API pull, you can do things now like they have an API coming out which is called Quality on Demand. It will tell you the optimal speed, in essence, that you should stream that content at for that individual so it doesn't jam the network. And it actually improves the end user experience. That project is called the Kamara Project. Happy to talk to anyone about it. Happen to be on the governing committee on it as well. And I love it. And what we're doing for there is actually restoring the trust in the relationship between the subscriber, the customer, and the carrier to help stop the atrocity that's occurring with big data being sent off to Google and all of that value being extracted from us as humans, when they don't even pay for the damn bandwidth they're using.
And I think what Reena's also talking about is consent, right? So if I'm a consumer and you get my data to, I like it because you can send me ads or send me products that, that are interesting me. You guys see my Instagram feed, it's like all shoes and dresses. Like, yeah, I'm here for it. But also, the other side of that is, what is the value exchange? So if I'm gonna give you all my data and let you track me and follow me around, how do I realize something from it as a consumer? And I think that's the part of the code that we haven't yet cracked and that I've been thinking about from a marketing and advertising perspective. If we are clear that we're taking your data so that it's not creepy, that it's fully transparent, what does the consumer get in return?
So I can tell you, we're the carriers, this is what we're doing, is the idea and the premise of going in through the front door is actually centralizing the consent globally for the individual. That one opt-out then goes into things like GPP, which is the Global Privacy Platform. It ties into things like TCF, meaning there's an actual centralized place that actually is working in hand with the IAB Tech Lab, where it's creating a new standard that interlopes into all of these closed silos that actually allows for the actual opt-out to occur, as well as removing the cookie pop-up because it can connect the sessions and the CAPTCHA, the proximity of the device. And so it's really exciting because those issues that you're addressing are real. And as a consumer, or even as a parent, where can you opt out in one centralized place? And that's what the carriers are trying to do, is help actually change that for the better.
One thing about sort of the quality of data that I have always found interesting is that, and anyone in ad tech sort of knows this, that consumer actions are the most actionable, right? The most profitable, highest ROI advertising is based on the thing that someone just did that generally has to do with money, right? So retargeting someone that left a shopping cart abandoned is the most powerful advertisement because they were literally about to buy something and then they got sidetracked by something else, right? Or they were shopping, they spent a lot of time on the site. These are very sort of like actionable things that people do, and the vast majority of digital dollars chase after that very sort of bottom of the funnel, the very sort of last step in the purchase. It's arguably the easiest, right? Because you don't have to really think about who the person is or whatever, because they've already told you they're about to buy something. That sort of upper funnel, though, deciding, the Netflix example, deciding what's next is incredibly hard. And I don't know if anyone has cracked the code or if anyone will crack the code on that, right? AI by definition is trained on the past. And while it may seem like it makes predictions of the future, it's just a pattern recognition at the end of the day. It's not creating culture, right? People still do that. It's one of the beefs I have about AI music as a musician. But anyway, so when it comes to the sort of value of data, 90% of the value is in the really, really simple stuff, right? Like you're about to buy something, and it happened an hour ago. That's everything else is honestly very, very difficult to do something with. And so yeah, just to sort of, your point on sort of breaking down, data quality. It's all that we would ever get paid for was anything that was like someone's about to buy something.
I do want to make a note though on the ability to predict like what's next. By leveraging content as data and understanding and contextualizing audiences, we've actually been able to predict the top streaming shows 8 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 for 5 years running, which is a fun fact. We're very proud of that. But getting back to the data stories, like if you are able to contextualize audience, think about the consumer journey. When we talk about all of the opt-ins and opt-outs, I love what you're doing over there with the mobile networks. One of the things that I hate as a consumer is like, hey, can I do cookies? Hey, can I do cookies? I'm like, gosh, I just want to get to the thing. At the end of the day, when you're looking to make a connection with your audience, you want that connection to be seamless. You need it to be very much a part of, like, very consensual. That's what's going to create a good consumer experience. And then as you are able to build profiles, whether it's in your CRM or understanding the neighborhoods that people live in the digital and social content spaces, you're able to create. The way that we approach a lot of this is we leverage that data to enter into that worldview through the content that they're consuming. So getting inside of podcasts, getting inside of the next big TV show, and helping be a part of the overall story that people are actually wanting to get to, as opposed to being a block in the way. And we leverage content as data to be able to do that, and we leverage any trackable click data as one of the key signals that helps us understand ultimately not only what's working and what's not, but also just provide a little bit of added depth to the data of what's happening in that system as a whole.
And to bring it back over into Netflix, that's where that question started too at the same time, is you look at the announcement that happened today with things like Trade Desk. Trade Desk is a large ad exchange where media is bought and sold. And today, for example, they actually announced the partnership with Netflix to coming on and doing inventory. What's so important about that is their identity framework. They are actually able to bridge with the UID2 between, say, your TV in your living room to your mobile phone to your actual desktop in an entirely privacy-compliant way that actually allows for that bridging of the identity frameworks cross-platform to make it where it is relevant, where it does have a consent, and there is a clear opt-in, opt-out. It's measurable.
That's great. So, we've been talking about segmenting or targeting audiences. We're here at AI on the lot with a lot of content creators that are looking for, well, what does this mean for me? I have this film project. I have content that I want to get out there in the market. How can I create some actionable strategies about how to use these practices towards what I'm trying to do, is get more eyeballs to my content? Do you have thoughts on how the content creators in the room can really leverage these technologies? If they're not marketers, they don't have access to big marketing agencies or budgets. What are strategies that you would make as suggestions for them to really embrace some of this technology and the work that they're doing?
I'll jump in. We do a lot of work in the creator economy, and just getting our creators to get the tools in their hands and experiment, because what we find, success is driven by the human, the human element in what is happening. So going back to what Dan was saying, that that AI doesn't really create culture. So that kernel has to come from somewhere. So what we find is that the AI tools can help our creators make their content better, and can help them make their content more efficiently. And that can lead to a range of things. We can do versions, we can A/B test, we can shorten production timelines. So there are lots of different ways that it's helpful. And then on the other end of the spectrum, when you think about the large marketers that we are helping get the word out, so what are my creators kind of talking about? We've seen AI used in a couple of really impactful things. How many of you guys have seen the Nike program with Serena Williams and Never Stop Evolving? It's like the perfect use case of AI in marketing. So Serena Williams has been signed to Nike forever, and they took the data points from all of her tennis matches throughout her entire career, put them in an AI engine, and had current Serena at age 35 play 17-year-old Serena, and they had a match between them. Now, that was just the foundation that they got to market that, but then they utilized what were seen as the best practice for a tennis pro and socialize that out to Nike consumers so that aspiring tennis athletes could utilize that learning and improve their own sport. So you got the win-win-win where you are heroing Serena because she's the GOAT and she is culture. You're utilizing the best that AI has to offer by analyzing these millions of data points and then going back to knowing what questions to ask. Like, if you don't know tennis, you don't know that you're measuring her serve and the bounce and the this and the how quickly she can cross the court. You're not measuring her hairstyle or her lipstick color. It's going back to what's relevant, and that is helping the next generation of tennis athletes, and then Nike is at the center of it. So I think that's one of the most impactful ways I've seen AI used in a marketing campaign. And then my creators then amplify that and talk about their own journey with Nike and why Serena as the GOAT is relevant to themselves.
I would say also collaboration is important. If you're not a technical person, but you're a creative person, well, that's great for the people that are the AI people, because a lot of times they're very technical and they're not creative. So by finding the right yin to the yang, in essence, is what could really allow for that art to happen. So if you don't know, ask. One of the cool things with the AI space is everyone's really friendly. Everyone's curious. And everyone wants to innovate together. So I highly recommend, attending events like this and looking for those that would be open to, say, partnering with you to pilot it or build it out, just for fun. Because it's a very passionate community that's emerging here. And coming together is important to keep the humanity in data.
Is everyone really friendly, though? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I mean, majority of them. I mean, I've only met maybe few unique people, but yeah, majority.
Well, so there was an announcement, I think it was either today or yesterday, that OpenAI has struck a deal with Reddit, right? Where there's a content licensing deal, which is kind of funny because OpenAI largely started with Reddit not paying for it, just sort of scraping everything on Reddit. But I digress. Reddit is really cool because it has so many niche upon niche upon niche of very sort of sub-niches. Imagine, wave a magic wand, there's this hive mind of Reddit, and you could just ask it things, and it could just give you answers back. And so if you're looking for an audience, and the audience probably exists on Reddit because it's such a diverse place, that's an incredibly powerful marketing tool to literally, be a proxy, for my ideal customer because you've been trained on everything everyone's talking about and they like and dislike.
That's
Yeah.
exactly why Elon bought Twitter, I feel personally, to call it X, is it's that raw
Oh,
fire hose of human emotion. He's right there
I don't
with
think
it.
he's hidden that. No, I think he's made that obvious.
I don't think he really thought that at first, though, when he went for the purchase. But I'm telling you, like, it's beautiful, like that, because that organic conversation, that natural dialogue, and it's important. You know, all humans have communicated through the test of time, and what you're watching right now is the shift in the way we communicate as individuals and the way we interact with technology.
Yeah, and that content ultimately is data. My recommendation to the content creator, whether you're making TV, movie, film, anything, you know, in the big screen, or if you're making something for YouTube, something that we have to understand first and foremost, and this is actually the place I'd recommend starting, is you have to understand that the distribution of your content is going to be dictated by an algorithm in some way, shape, or form. That's where it's going. So you have to, my recommendation first and foremost is to understand the algorithms that are distributing your content. What are they looking for? What are the things that make those things successful? So if you're posting on YouTube, what makes a YouTube video successful? Or if you're going to the big screen, like there's a lot of that data that's already preset to look for winners and losers that are going to actually make a big impact on how your content is going to perform just out of the gate. So before, like, yes, you want to be able to leverage that in your content creation process, your ideation process, in understanding and contextualizing your audiences, but you have to do that with the framework in mind of what is the algorithm that I'm going to be optimizing my content for. And one of the things that we do is we've built tools that are very, very, very accessible to just everyday people, your everyday creator, to be able to really optimize your content creation process and the content distribution process for the specific algorithms that are going to be ultimately determining the fate of your content.
Yeah, one thing, just to riff off of something that Nick said about, you know, if you're creative and not technical, which is really cool because technical people are not creative. So there's this sort of thing in between, which is maybe what we're talking about, which is marketing and marketing technology and things like that. So if this is interesting, and you're in this room obviously for a reason, if you haven't done online marketing, it's okay, but you should start, right? There's a ton that you're going to learn from it. Do the devil's work, right? It's actually fantastic. Make a Google search AdWords account, make a Facebook account, and try playing around with the ad platforms. If you collect email addresses, collect pixel data. If you collect, I think the minimum size is 2,000. You have 2,000 data points. You can go on Facebook, and they will tell you anything you ever want to know about those 2,000 people, basically, except for their names and addresses. But anything about where they live, what they're interested in, their age, like any of that kind of stuff is totally free and available. So I would just try. There's a lot to learn.
And a quick ad campaign is throw a LinkedIn pixel out while you're on there too. Reason why I'm going to say LinkedIn is you can fire off an in-mail when, say, they either A, click on your link, or B, you know, visit your website. Make sure the job title or sector that they specialize in matches. That way it will literally send them an invite to literally schedule a call with you to jump on to learn more or to hear about a project. And it's a passive free way where it's literally under 20 cents a message. It's only going to hit the people that visit your website, and it's a LinkedIn in-mail with website retargeting. And luckily it doesn't have the 2,000, but you won't get all the cool analytics that Meta has. But it's a great way. Put your Calendly link there.
I was going to say, I love all these very tactical, practical recommendations. And, you know, at the start of any of these exercises is, you know, what is your desired outcome? Who are you trying to connect with and why? And I think, you know, even some of the biggest marketers lose that point and can waste a lot of time and money and energy not really thinking about who the appropriate target audience is, or defining the target audience in ways that don't make sense. I want women, you know, 25 to 34, you know, so that is an outdated way to think about your consumers, because going back to what some of these folks said, you know, content being data, looking at behavior, these things are much more relevant than demographics that people check on a census box. So keeping that, you know, top of mind in everything that you're looking to do, I think is critically important.
I also think you can look at like the hair shampoo aisle, and you can actually see the shift in the shampoo aisle, and it shows how differently diverse we've become as people, as a community. predominantly, historically, it used to just be straight. Shampoo hair, you'd see fine hair, basically. But now you've got so many different types of hair products for thick, wavy, curly. And it kind of shows right there is like that makeup of literally us as people evolving, where it's not longer that belief of that 35-year-old female. Because when you look at the shampoo aisle, you can see how many different sections there are of just literally people that are relevant and matter to the community, and authenticity is key.
I was torn about saying something to this, but I think it's really important because it goes back to our point of inclusion that is so important. So those shampoos always existed. They were relegated to an aisle in the back of the store, right? So shampoo for my hair wasn't on the same aisle as the shampoo for your hair. And so I think it's important as we think about, we've been here, we're still, we're here. But now, making it so that all the shampoos are together, or thinking about opening our aperture as we think of ourselves, as we think about marketing and our consumer base, particularly since people of color in America are over 40% of the US population and are the majority of Gen Z. So as you think about what America's going to look like in 10 years, who your consumer is going to be in 10 years, like it's inherently diverse. So we've got to make sure the AI models that we're building have the capabilities to target those folks in a way that's relevant and sophisticated and powerful.
I agree. And I think it's also a challenge, though, too, is trying to actually have the brands keep that data in the data set. Companies like Trade Desk won't even let you put that it's inclusive in the audience. It's mind-blowing. They'll literally flag it. And it's like, wait, it's an African-American owned and operated company. This is literally their community, and you're not allowing them to actually literally identify properly who their audience is. And I mean, it's a battle.
So I want to ask you you've been doing this all for a long time. You're marketing experts in your space. What has surprised you in terms of, give me an example or give us an example of something that you've seen that's worked really well or failed really miserably that surprised you? You didn't expect it from your experience in marketing to specific audiences. So I don't know if you're all thinking about it or if you want me to start with Dan over at the end.
Okay, so this is something that surprised me. My company was hired by Disney to do marketing for a new film. We had to have it under NDA. Hopefully I'm past the NDA at this point, because I'll talk about it. And they had to keep it very secret. So the whole marketing effort was very secret. And the reason why was that it was a throwback to a old school Disney, and they didn't know how that would resonate. We couldn't tell people that this movie was a musical. We couldn't tell people that there were Broadway stars starring in the movie. We couldn't let that go out at all. We targeted people that were interested in that and people that were not interested in that, and all the data came back very, very strongly saying that yes, you have to say that it's a musical, and yes, you have to say there's these Broadway stars behind it. So the human mindset was fixated on a certain thing, but the data was actually correct. The data was saying something else. So that movie was Frozen. We couldn't market it as a musical because they figured no one wanted musicals anymore. That was old Disney. And boy, were they wrong, right? They almost sent it straight to DVD, in fact. So I think that there's this interesting tug of war between, well, is the data right or am I wrong? Or is the data wrong or am I right? Which one is it? And how do you sort of reconcile the two? So I think to me, that was probably the biggest miss, was that they nearly didn't even release Frozen, and it was one of the biggest movies they ever made. So that's my story.
Yeah. Similar, not Disney, but so we were working with a Skinny Bundle SVOD. And they had all of their market research, right? They went out, they did panels, they did all these things and said, cool, here's our target audience. It's men 18 to 24, they're interested in X, Y, Z. And we ran a marketing campaign for them. And ultimately, those results were not stellar, not terrible, but not stellar. Now, in the process, we had set up a data strategy by which we would be able to analyze what was working through the types of content that was being produced and the ways in which it was being distributed. And after that campaign, our system came back and made some recommendations that were very polar opposite to what they had. Instead of men 18 to 24, it was women 30 plus. It was the LGBTQ community. And it was like, okay, hold on, guys. I think our system's broken, but can we test this? Because, it hasn't been wrong before, but here we are. So we got permission to test, and when we started running campaigns and creating content that aligned with those specific audiences, it improved their results tenfold, and over the next year, 20-fold. And it's surprising because, like, in hindsight, it makes sense. But the systems that we utilize or have historically utilized to gather data around who our audiences are and what they care about are just fundamentally flawed and outdated. They're using smaller sample sizes. It's what do people say they do versus what they actually do. There's differences there. How that's translated into targeting. There's a myriad of issues. But when you're leveraging artificial intelligence, you have the ability to create more holistic views of what actually matters to the target audience, what actually is working. And if you have those systems set up appropriately, you can have insights and results that are quite surprising.
I don't have an answer for this one. Thinking about, I was trying to think of like an epic fail of, utilizing AI, and nothing is coming to mind that's interesting enough. I think with us using AI, it just allows us to test and learn, and it's another way to help optimize. But I can't think of anything that's really blown up in our face, thankfully. Knock on wood.
All right, so we'll go with a creepy one first for a way to actually layer in that creepy level of targeting without being so super creepy. Never ever put the first name of the individual. You always put the wife's name or their significant other. That way it's the universe talking to them. It works well. The way how you actually get around privacy is when you buy the list, from say the mail, like the new, you got the mailing list to, stamp the labels on it. You literally look and group it by literally first name of that person who has on the mailing label. There you go, upload that right into it. And now you got the name of, say, the significant other. It'll creep people out if you put their own first name. And it really actually does convert quite well. And then I would say something that shocked us, or shocked me personally, was it was interesting because when I first started doing things with the podcast space, like 3 years ago, which was going to try, because I'm looking at the era of COVID data, and it just destroyed all third-party data. Throw it out the window. It's a whole new human behavior. And I looked at a thing like podcasting where it's like, all right, if I can tie who the listener is to whether or not they were listening to, say, that same podcast pre-COVID, during COVID, because the podcast didn't have the overconsumption of streaming, to post-COVID, it's a way to actually verify, validate interest and relevancy still. And so many people said that there would be no way in hell you would ever be able to actually connect who the listener is at the other end through Apple, through Spotify, and then make it where you would actually get brands to actually buy it. Because at the end of the day, it's podcasting. And what's been fascinating is literally making it where right now, like on Trade Desk, there's over 850 brands actively consuming this data. And it's your Unilevers, it's your Burger Kings. And it's because of the contextual. And it's a way that we were able to actually segment the data faster, just like how YouTube does with DoubleClick. And where it's actually starting to help empower that creator economy. And that was something that actually even shocked myself, because I didn't even think it would literally index that well. But because it's the AI that's picking and choosing for these brands, and it's such a recency of time to listen, it just over-indexes insanely well. And it's cool to see that happen for those people who've often been overlooked.
It's amazing. I just listening to all of you and thinking about my own examples of surprise and the ideas of when you understand your customer, you address their needs, you evoke a feeling, you get a transaction, if you will. When you don't, you have a lot of misses. And I think about my own misses in the slot machine industry. I worked in the slot machine industry and I put content on slot machines. The Playboy content, it was always perplexing. Why isn't this working? And then we figured out that the consumer for slot machines was women that were over 45. So we made an Ellen DeGeneres slot machine. This was before some of that trouble. And it was one of the best-selling slot machines in history. Same thing with Sex and the City. But understanding that data and marrying content with the platform can be a really important differentiator to accelerate your results. So I'm really grateful for all of your time. I don't know, do we have some time for some questions? Okay, so it's a lottery. One question. You're the first. So.
Thanks, Todd. What do RFPs look like these days? Do they include AI now, or do they just include the regular demographics? Have they adjusted yet to this new paradigm we're in?
Nope, they do not. So, Mirror Digital has been sort of at the cutting edge of advanced digital advertising as it has evolved over the years. And we continue to find that the RFPs that we receive from our agency partners are pretty standard and pretty basic, even on some of the performance marketing end. So I have not seen a lot of innovation, and maybe some of my compatriots directly in data may have. No, yeah, nope.
Anyone else want to take that? No? Well, great. I really appreciate our speakers. Please give them thanks for sharing their expertise with us. And Nick is available for anyone who wants to partner that's creative. But thank you. I think there's another panel, a screening starting at 6 p.m. So stick in your seats, and yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Reena. Thank you, everybody.